Okay, we're back on YouTube. Just for the record, there was an issue with Mr. Rogers, and we just paused so that he could log back on.
Thank you, Judge. Officer Rollins, if you could, let's go back to when you were you had given us testimony regarding another officer who was there, who was able to smell the weapon and what his determination was.
Okay. So there's a senior officer we have on the shift that's been with the department maybe 11 or 12 years. He's really good with firearms and things of that sort. He was able to smell that weapon, also feel it, and he was able to determine that the weapon was fired within, a certain time frame from when we got there.
Okay. But the person who, because I think Attorney Rogers I think he got disconnected when you were saying, I think I asked you, who was the person that had indicated that he had shot the weapon earlier in the day?
So the driver, Omari Liptrot, the weapon supposedly is owned by his big brother. And he had possession of that weapon. He said that he did shoot the weapon prior on that date at a friend's house who had a lot of land. That's what he said.
Okay. And I think another part that Attorney Rogers missed, I think we were getting into the shell casings that were found. If you could just tell us about the shell casings that were found and whether or not you all believe that they were from that weapon.
So we found, I believe, 5 shell casings in total. One was next to the driver's seat and the floorboard in the corner next to the seat. And 4 were at the supposed incident location at the studio, in front of that studio.
And from your investigation, you all determined that, I think you said the next day, that the person, I guess, who had this studio, was this a Michael Smith?
Yes.
And was he able to provide you all any information regarding any damage to his apartment or anything that was taken?
He was. He identified the camera by serial number that we recovered from the passenger seat of the vehicle that was within reach of the Jaquez Durant. We also charged him with the criminal damage to property from the bullets that went through a front AC unit. I believe it was the front window and went through all the way to almost the studio. So it passed through a few different walls. So he had multiple bullet shots as well as an AC system that was damaged as well.
Were you able to see the damage?
Another officer went out and took that report. So it was a follow-up from my previous. It was on day watch, which is a 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. shift.
And was Mr. Smith able to give an estimate for how much it was going to cost to repair the damage?
So I don't have the damage repair in front of me, but I do know that the camera was $700. As far as the damage to the property, I don't have that report in front of me. I only have mine. I can pull it up if you need me to.
Well, I guess because it's a criminal damaging, I need to know about the value of the damage.
Okay.
And so,
well, not an objection, but I will point out, I think it's the only one I've seen, I think it was criminal damage in the first, I don't think it was in the second.
Okay, right. It was criminal damage in the first. Okay. And then you said that the camera was estimated to be how much?
I believe they put the estimation at $699, so approximately $700.
Okay. And just so we're clear, the camera that was allegedly taken from Mr. Michael Smith, where was that located?
It was located in the passenger floorboard of the white vehicle that the 3 suspects were in.
And who was sitting at that location?
That was Jaquez Durant.
Was Mr. Smith able to give a description of the individuals who were shooting at him?
He did. He also named two of them by their name, I believe. Let me go back to this other officer's report. I believe he gave names because he had to book it, and how he booked it was given their full names.
Well, you were breaking up. Say that one more time.
I said they had to book it through Instagram, and they gave their names when they booked the appointment.
Were you able to review that booking via Instagram?
Yeah, they booked the studio via Instagram, and they gave names which the victim was able to identify later on as two individuals that we found in the vehicle.
Was Mr. Durant identified as one of those individuals?
I believe so, but I'm pulling up the report right now, so give me 1 second, because it's a separate report for that officer that took the supplemental report the next day. So I just need to confirm. I apologize for not having it up already.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and object at this point. I've given them a little bit of leeway, but I mean, testimony is generally supposed to be coming from the knowledge of the witness. I've given the witness time to research it. If he don't know, he doesn't know, and that's fine. But at this point, I would object that the witness is not testifying from their knowledge, their information, and they still haven't been able to produce it.
I took it as he's looking at this to refresh his recollection, but Officer Rollins, if you can't find the information, I mean, is that something that you believe is vital to your case, Ms. Freeman?
Well, and Judge, is information, I don't have that supplemental, so I'm quite frankly, honestly, I don't know if it's going to say that the victim, that they were able to identify Mr. Durant or not. And so it is a very important piece because it has to do with whether or not the victim was able to identify Mr. Durant. But if Officer Rollins isn't able to locate it, we can certainly move on. He did indicate in his testimony that they were able to identified 2 other individuals, and there were a
Right.
total of 3.
Right. And I do want to know the answer to that question, but I don't want to be here for 30 minutes.
Well, I
trying to-
apologize. I did eventually find the report. It was buried deep in the system, but I did find the report. I apologize.
Okay, so can you answer the question as to the people who were identified?
Yeah, so he stated that on night prior, he had a meeting scheduled at his home with a male named Omari Liptrot, suspect, and Jaquez Durant. And that
Okay.
is under case number 2205-2387. And Terstis Harris, officer 28347, is the one who did that report.
Okay.
And Officer Rollins, was this, I think you had testified previously about booking an appointment via Instagram. Is this what you're referring to?
That is, he said, upon my arrival, I made contact with Michael Smith, victim, who stated he was a music engineer. He stated that he produces music from his home. He stated that on the night prior, he had a meeting scheduled at his home with a male named Omari Liptrot and Jaquez Durant.
Yeah, I guess I want to make sure I'm clear. Is that whose testimony was that? Because I think I'm objecting to double or maybe triple hearsay at this point.
My understanding is that this is a supplemental report that was done the next day by an officer Harris.
Yeah, Officer Harris went out physically and she was able to get this information from the witness who was scared to make a report the night prior.
Yeah, and
No,
I would object to any. I mean, I know hearsay is allowed. It does not say that double hearsay is allowed. It doesn't say we can just say, at a certain point we have to cut it off. Hearsay is already has its own issues anyway. But once we get into double and triple about a report from an officer reporting somebody else saying something, and this officer's reading that report, like it's getting a little attenuated. So I would object.
I'm going to overrule your objection. My understanding is that this account is coming from the person who's alleged to be the victim.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that officer is reading another officer's report of that victim's account. And so now the issues that arise from hearsay are being compounded by the fact that one can't even question that officer because that officer is unavailable to be questioned about their hearsay. So that's why I say at this point, we get into double and triple, it becomes it's like interest. It's just compounding at this point.
Okay, well, I don't see it that way. He's identified the witness, and the witness is the alleged victim. And he is looking at a report, but it was a report done by another officer related to this case.
And Judge, just to, I guess to wrap this part up, Officer Rollins, the supplemental from Officer Harris, was this made part of the entire report?
It's all connected in one.
Okay. You stated earlier, and you may have already said this, but I wanted to be clear. The camera that was located in the car near where Mr. Durant was sitting, were you all able to confirm that this was a camera that was taken from Mr. Smith?
We did. He gave us the serial number to the camera and it matched the same camera that I, out of pure curiosity, decided to just take and put in the safekeeping because I figured because of the initial contact that they made saying that it was about stealing the camera, it just kind of dawned on me when I saw the camera just to go ahead and put it in safekeeping, and it ended up being a camera that the victim said was stolen from him.
Was there any surveillance video that you were able to review? No,
we didn't. At this point, we didn't find any ring doorbell or any footage that was able to, put this whole thing kind of together in a video format.
Did all of this happen in Clayton County?
Everything occurred in Clayton County, yes.
Also, Rollins, you stated earlier about that none of these individuals in the vehicle resided in an apartment complex. Is that correct?
That's correct. None of them had any addresses or ties to that apartment complex.
And what time of day was this?
We got called out to this incident at approximately 12:26 when we got called out.
Is that PM or AM?
That's AM. It was after midnight.
Okay. At any time, did Mr. Smith state that he gave any of these individuals permission to take the camera?
He did not.
Thank you. That's all I have, Judge.
Before you get started, Mr. Rogers, Ms. Freeman, because I've interrupted you a number of times, I was going to wait and see if this testimony came back. But when I stopped Officer Rollins, he was testifying about a witness who I believe is the alleged victim that was on the floor and said something to the effect of being scared. I didn't know if that was something that you wanted, but I did hear that testimony, and Mr. Rogers was not present for it.
I can go back and have Officer Rollins talk about that again. Officer Rollins, you were talking about why the investigation went on to the next day when you all were in communication with the victim. If you could,
so we tried to reach out to the victim. We did. We knocked on the door. We canvassed the whole entire area. We had independent other witness statements from people saying that they saw the vehicles leave the scene, but the actual victim, the person who got shot at, and the person who allegedly had his camera taken and all of those things, he was on the floor scared for his life. He didn't get up until the next morning. He said he just wanted to just lay there and just hope that it all went away. And when he finally did, muster up the courage and the strength to call into the police, that's when other officers were able to go out and actually take the formal statement from him and get the rest of the story.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted Mr. Rogers to have the benefit of that testimony.
All right, thank you, Judge. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. You can cross-examine.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I guess I'll kind of start at that last part then. Number one, so when we're saying the victim is on the floor, are we saying where, as you understand it, where is the victim and where are the shots being fired from?
So he said he was towards the front of his residence on the floor, and I believe the shots were being fired towards the front of the residence.
And when you say fired towards the front of the residence, are the shooters supposed to be inside or outside of the residence at that point?
Those people were outside the residence. He was inside. And he said he dropped to the floor with his dog.
And so is he saying, because I know there was some discussion about him identifying people that booked the studio session, I guess, or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is he saying that those people, he is saying that he physically watched those people firing shots, or is that just who the people were?
So if I could, this question wasn't asked earlier and it wasn't disclosed. So Your Honor, if I'm wrong, correct me. Those three gentlemen came into the studio with two other people, and throughout the studio session, in his witness statement, he said they were constantly brandishing weapons for videos and showing guns and walking in and out of the studio. So he knew that they were armed, but he didn't really see it as an issue because he said that's what people just do on Instagram to show off. So that's where, he knew that this whole situation with the camera, and he physically told them, based on his statement, nobody can leave until I find my camera. That's what he told everybody. And that was his statement that he gave them. Nobody's leaving until I find my camera. I gotta find my camera. And that's when everything just kind of escalated.
Okay. And so, to come back to my question, when there was a discussion about him identifying Mr. Liptrot and Mr. Durant, either by name or by their Instagram, is he identifying those people as people that he actually physically saw firing shots, or merely that's how he knows the names of the people that were there?
You were correct on all that. That's how he knows the names of the people who were there.
So when the shots are actually being fired, is he saying that he can actually see who is shooting?
Hold on 1 second. I'm just reading what he said. Okay, so counsel, if you would allow me to read exactly what he said.
Is this, you talking about what the alleged victim says?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he said, he stated that he ran behind Omari, suspect, informing him that he had dropped his wallet and that all he wanted was his camera back. He stated that all of the males started to run towards him, causing him to run back into his home and lay on the ground. So he stated that he had a gut feeling that they were going to shoot into his home, so he grabbed his dog and laid down. So based on what I just read, he was outside, obviously able to identify them, and then as they started running towards him, he ran back into his house and laid down. Based on what he said in his statement, he felt as though they were going to eventually shoot up his home.
Okay. And so, and then once you finally make the stop on the vehicle, just so I'm clear, I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. There was only one firearm found, is that correct?
Yeah, there was only one firearm found and two magazines.
And so do you know approximately how much time he's saying passes between, well, let me make sure I'm a little bit more clear about it. So he's standing outside, the other people are standing outside. This is all prior to the shooting, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then I guess they have some sort of unpleasantries. And at that point, the alleged victim gets a feeling that things are about to go south. And that's when he runs inside. Is that correct?
Yeah, he retreated once they ran towards him.
Okay.
He said he indicated to one of the gentlemen that they dropped his wallet and all he wanted was his camera back. That's when they ran towards him, and that's when he retreated.
Okay. And so from my understanding, those people would have been outside of vehicles and everything at that point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so do you know approximately how much time passed from him running inside until he starts hearing what he believes to be gunshots or striking objects or whatever?
He stated that a few minutes after laying down, he heard 3 to 5 shots and glass shattering from his living room window.
And then the only shell casing that you found in the vehicle is on the driver's side?
Driver's side on the floor, the floorboard in the corner.
And Mr. Liptrot was the driver?
That's correct.
And Mr. Liptrot is admitted to firing the gun that day?
Yep.
And Mr. Liptrot provided the gun he's not saying anybody provided that firearm for him as far as the co-defendants, correct?
No, he said that it was from his brother, but we have other witness statements that says there were multiple guns. We just didn't locate any more. And so there's 2 other witness statements who. Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. You about to say something? Go ahead.
I have read 2 other witness statements that officer had gathered, which said that there were multiple guns, but we only recovered one.
And let me be clear, I just want to make sure I understand. So when we're saying multiple guns, did police look around the area, the actual premises for guns?
Yeah, we canvassed everywhere. We looked in every bush, everybody's location. We looked a lot of different places.
And the only gun you found was the Glock that Mr. Liptry has claimed, correct?
The one that was in the in the glove box.
Let's see. And as it relates to the camera, just so I'm clear, the alleged victim, is it Mr. Jones or Johnson? What's the last name?
The victim or?
Yeah, the alleged victim. What's his last name? Johnson or Jones or something?
I do it Smith.
Smith? Oh, okay. I was way off. In any event, though, that the alleged victim, he was unclear where the camera was, is that correct?
It was on a tripod stand and it had got knocked down during the session and then it disappeared.
Right, and that's why I'm asking. Let me make it a little bit more pointed. What I'm asking is, so he's not saying he knew who took the camera or anything, right?
No, he just said it went missing during the session.
And as far as it relates to the camera, the only thing tying Mr. Durant to it is just the fact that you said he was near it in the car.
It was within his reach in the vehicle and it was on his side, yes.
Did anybody in the car make any statements about how the camera came to be there?
To be honest, we realized the camera was in there after we got the gentleman out.
So nobody commented on that?
No, because nobody really wanted to answer any questions. Everybody said that they didn't want to talk past what they told us about the studio. Nobody wanted to speak. Everybody said they wanted a lawyer. They didn't want to say anything else.
I think I'm just about done. If I yeah, no further questions at the moment.
Ms. Freeman?
No additional questions, Mr. Statement.
May Officer Rollins be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Officer Rollins, sir, you can be released. You can stay on if you want and see the end of the hearing, or you can leave. You're no longer required to be here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Rogers, do you intend on calling any witnesses?
No, sir, Your Honor, just argument.
Okay. Are you going to waive opening, Ms. Freeman?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Rogers.
I imagine, I hope it was relatively clear where I was going with this, based on the question, specifically as it relates to the aggravated assault and the criminal damage in the first degree. But also additionally, everything I'm about to say will still apply as it relates to the theft by taking. But I'll start from the end of the loitering and the prowling. The fact that I guess that they were there, it seems to be established that they had a studio session, so I don't know if we can have it both ways to say that they weren't there for a reason, at least initially, and then say that they weren't later. Like, I understand the basis of making contact, but I don't know if you can have it both ways. They were there for an agreed upon purpose, was apparently an occupant of the apartment complex. With that being said, as it relates to the aggravated assault and the criminal damage in the first degree, there's no indication that Mr. Durant played any part in this situation. And what I mean specifically is that he's not alleged, there's no basis to allege that he's a shooter. Only one person has admitted to firing the weapon, which is also the same person who provided the weapon, who's also the same person whose car that the weapon was found in. And where the casings were found on their side of the vehicle and the driver's side of the vehicle. Generally, if a weapon is going to be fired, it's not going to be fired across people's faces in a vehicle. So that would be what I would say about the aggravated assault, is that it seems to be relatively evident who the only person we have any basis to think did any shooting. There's only one gun found in the car. There's no testimony that Mr. Durant drove somebody there. that he provided a firearm to anyone, provided any ammo, suggested that anybody fire any shots, did anything as it relates to the aggravated assault. He's merely present at the most, if he was present, which as far as who's there when the shots are fired, the alleged victim does not actually see the firing of the shots and who's immediately present and who's where, or whatever the case may be. So there's really no basis to be charging Mr. Durant as it relates to that, because even if you go somewhere with somebody and you go for a lawful purpose and they decide to do something unlawful there without your knowledge or your pre-agreement or any of those things, you're not liable just for being there. You're a witness, not a defendant, not a suspect. That will make you a witness for merely being present, which is all that they had to say about Mr. Durant as it relates to the firing of the shots. There's no basis to think he was involved in any way with that. The criminal damage things rely also on his involvement somehow in firing the shots, which there's been no basis to allege. Like Mr. Durant is simply and even if I were to entertain any parts as it related to the theft by taking, which there's been no indication other than, again, mere proximity on behalf of Mr. Durant. There's a camera in someone else's car, which there's no basis, no statements are alleged by anybody in this car assigning it to Mr. Durant. The alleged victim doesn't claim to have seen Mr. Durant take it. So there's no basis to say that Mr. Durant knew anything about that camera being there or when it got there or how it got there, any of these things. And again, it's not his car, so there's no presumption that he was in possession of it. For all of those reasons, John, I would ask that all of the charges be dismissed for lack of probable cause as it relates to Mr. Durant. I would concede that they have against another person in that vehicle, but Mr. Durant isn't it. Thank you.
Judge, we're asking that all the charges are bound over. The loitering and prowling, even if the individuals were at this studio for a legitimate purpose, at the time when Officer Rollins saw them and they were just sitting in the car, they lost that privilege. They had no reason to be there. When the camera was taken without Mr. Smith's permission, it was found on the passenger floorboard by where Mr. Durant was sitting. And I know Attorney Rogers says generally if someone shoots a gun in a car, you're not going to shoot across, but we don't know that. And so at this stage, I don't think that assumption is relevant, but that a gun was fired several times at Mr. Smith. And it seems to have been a result of the camera being taken, and Mr. Smith wanted his camera back. Well, we found the camera located at Mr. Durant's feet, and the gun was located in the glove box right in front of where Mr. Durant was sitting. So, Judge, we do believe, and we've heard testimony regarding damage that was done to this studio. So we're asking that, at least for this stage, that you find that probable cause has been established and that all the charges are bound over to Superior Court.
Let me ask this question, because I think I've heard two answers to the question. I understood on direct for Officer Rollins to say that there was a shell casing on the driver's side of the car, but then there are 4 other shell casings on the other side of the car. Did I hear that correctly?
What I heard was that they were at the location at the premises, but you can ask if he's still here.
Right. My understanding was that the other shell casings were found at the location.
Okay. Then I was mistaken. Because I know when Mr. Rogers asked, Officer Rollins said the shell casing in the car, but okay. So, all right. The loitering and prowling was the charge that I was looking at the hardest. It's clear that there is testimony that Mr. Smith said nobody's leaving until I find my camera. It's clear that the testimony is saying that Mr. Durant and the 2 other individuals were there along with, I believe, 2 other people in the home. So I am going to bind over the aggravated assault to the Superior Court, criminal damage to property in the 1st degree to the Superior Court, theft by taking to the Superior Court, and the loitering or prowling to the Superior Court of Clayton County. All right, what's the
Thank you,
next?
Judge.
You're welcome. Officer Rawlings, you may be excused. Is Alexander the next case?
Yes, Your Honor, and ADA Williams, I believe, is ready on that one, and Detective Cooper is already logged on.
Okay. I see Mr. Schoolcraft is here. Do you need to speak to Mr. Schoolcraft?
Yes, Attorney Schoolcraft did ask to go into a breakout room with me regarding his client.
Okay, can I do that now?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. Mr. Schoolcraft, I'm going to place you in breakout room number 1 so you and Ms. Freeman can have a conversation. And
Y'all know what this charge is going to be bound to Superior Court?
yes, sir. Charges are going to be bound over to the Superior Court.
All right. Well, I don't even want to have the hearing.
Well, Yana, let me
Hold
talk to
on.
Mr. Alexander real quick, see what's going on.
Okay. Because I was going to ask, because I think I answered your question incorrectly. But I'm going to let Mr. Rogers speak to you. And Ms. Freeman, you can go over and speak to Mr. Schoolcraft. And I'm going to take a 5-minute break.
All right, thank you, Judge.